Let's talk about Donald Trump and witness tampering and positive bias. These are two things I want to talk about with you today. Let's start with witness tampering because, of course, he is really good at this. We've actually found something that Trump can do really well. Yes, he committed more crimes on Monday morning as he prepares to be indicted for the fourth time this week, this time at Fulton County, Georgia. He unleashed his fury at the former Georgia Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, a key witness in the investigation who is set to testify before the grand jury on Tuesday. In his Truth Social posting, Trump warned Duncan not to testify. He said, "I am reading reports." He knows. "I am reading reports that failed former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, will be testifying before the Fulton County grand jury. He shouldn't." Now, normally if you want to intimidate a witness, you would do it subtly. You'd ask someone who was connected with you to find someone who didn't know you, who didn't know that person either, to maybe make a phone call or to go visit that person in a parking lot or, outside their house or something. I mean, that's how you do witness intimidation in a kind of stealth-like way. Not good enough for Donald Trump. He just writes the words, "he shouldn't." If you wanted to call into question whether or not he's trying to intimidate a witness, just read Donald Trump's own Truth Social posts. And then he writes, "I barely know him, but he was, right from the beginning of this witch hunt, a nasty disaster for those looking into the election fraud that took place in Georgia." Of course, there was no election fraud in Georgia. And certainly how he knows, if he barely knows him, that the guy is a nasty disaster. I mean, this is the point of Trump's contradictions. He thinks everybody is as stupid as he is. He goes on to say he refused having a special session to find out what went on, became very unpopular with Republicans. I refused to endorse him, and fought the truth all the way. A loser, he went on to CNN. So look, let's be clear what's happening here. Donald Trump is desperate, he's nervous, he's angry, and he's running out of things to do, of routes with which that he could intimidate witnesses like he used to. And isn't this the problem with, someone like Donald Trump, that he just does not understand? And in fact, this is a really good example, isn't it? Considering that the judge previously has said he needs to zip it, the fact that he can't, the fact that he cannot stop either intimidating witnesses or criticizing judges or prosecutors. I mean, the things he said about Fani Willis are incredible. They are so vile. No one should, in their right mind, whether they're being prosecuted or indicted or not, say these things about other people. And yet Donald Trump does not have that gene that we all have, a sense of moral compass. He is a pure racist, and he obviously hates women. And these two things together are unfortunate because he is being indicted invariably by black women. So let's talk about positive bias just for a second, because, Donald Trump has been posting on Truth Social. He retweeted about 15 or 16 QAnon posts in the last 24 hours. He wrote one post about Tanya Chutkan, who, of course, is the judge who will be overseeing this election fraud, or him attempting to overturn the U.S. election case. He writes, "The following truth is a quote by highly partisan Judge Tanya Chutkan, angrily sentencing a January 6er in October of 2022. She obviously wants me behind bars, very biased and unfair." So, and then he basically quotes something that Tanya Chutkan has said previously, which is completely acceptable and normal by all accounts because she was sentencing somebody else. She wrote, "I see the videotapes, I see the footage of the flags and the signs that people were carrying and the hats that they were wearing, and the garb, and the people who mobbed that Capitol were there in fealty, in loyalty to one man, not to the Constitution, of which most of the people who come before me seem woefully ignorant. Not to the ideals of this country and not to the principles of democracy. It's a blind loyalty to one person who, by the way, remains free to this day." End quote. Judge Tanya Chutkan. She is describing fascism. She is talking about the blind worship of one man, Donald Trump. She is talking about the fact that the Constitution does not call for blind worship to a solitary figure, an individual. It's about, you pledge your allegiance to the United States and the Constitution. That is the whole point. Not to a dictator, an authoritarian, somebody who thinks they are above the law, who thinks if they lose an election, they can just say that they didn't lose and the election was fraudulent. This is why this case is so serious. This is why Donald Trump does not belong in the White House. He doesn't even belong in society. Donald Trump should be locked up. And let's talk about bias for a second, because, Tanya Chutkan has no bias against Donald Trump personally. She has bias against anybody who breaks the law. Those were the words that she used when she was talking to a January 6er, one of Trump's mob, somebody who was incited by Donald Trump. They went to the Capitol, they broke windows, they went inside, and ultimately they paid the price because that's a criminal offense. Donald Trump also committed a criminal offense in terms of conspiracy and incitement and conspiracy against rights, for example, which is, I think, one of the most interesting of the charges. And so, let's be very clear, the positive bias that Donald Trump presents is him thinking that anybody who says anything bad about him is bias against him. And look, people like myself, journalists, are accused of bias when we report on Donald Trump breaking the law. But it's not our bias. It's the positive bias of the person watching or reading what we've written. And this is what Donald Trump is experiencing. He has a positive bias against Tanya Chutkan. Nothing she says or does will be good enough for him because he is projecting his own bias on her. He hates her anyway because she's female and she's black, and that clearly is not something that works for him. But more importantly, she is somebody who takes the law very seriously. And I think it's kind of unfair of those who've said, she is one of the, she's handed down some of the harshest sentences on January 6. January 6 was an insurrection. It was a coup against the United States. All of the sentences should be harsh. And certainly for the people involved, the people at the very top, those people who were involved in the conspiracy and who presented the conspiracy, and certainly in the case of Donald Trump making his speech, let's go to the Capitol and take our country back, and you've got to be strong, and I'll go with you. I mean, it's all on videotape. This is not hearsay. So, Trump's bias and his witness tampering are the two things that are going to continue to put him into a deeper vat of hot water where he belongs. I'm Anthony Davis. You can hear me every day on the 5-Minute News Podcast, on Wednesdays hosting or co-hosting MAGA Uncovered with my friend Ron Filipkowski, and on Sundays on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.